Hello, Internet, and welcome to another fine edition of Coffee Shop Talk. Today we're going to be talking about Genesis 5. Genesis 5:1. This is the book of the generations of Adam. When God created man, he made man in the likeness of God. Male and female he created them, and he blessed them and named them man when they were created. When Adam lived 130 years old, he fathered a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. So what we have happening here is that God creates man, and he says, go ahead and be created in my own likeness. And after they were created in his own likeness, man then went and created man. So what we have here is one of the mysteries to the question, what does it mean to be made in the image of God? And what it means here is that man is creative. God is creative, therefore man is creative. So the way in which man mirrors the image of God is by being a creative being. One of the things that you notice here is that man is living an incredibly long time. 800 years after he fathered Seth is how long Adam lived, leading up to 930 years old, almost 1,000 years old. We look at that nowadays and we go, I don't think so. We've only ever observed mankind living just past 100 years old. Therefore, how could it possibly be that someone would be able to live 930 years? Well, the answer to that is that in the garden, men and women were created perfectly. After sin, there became this entropy that then took over the world and then started limiting the amount of time that man could be alive. In addition, we'll find later on that God pronounces a little bit of a curse as a mercy so that man would not live in his sin past 120 years. We find a very interesting verse here in verse 21, a very beautiful and interesting verse. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Enoch were 365 years. It's interesting that everyone else was living much longer than 365 years. What was different about Enoch? Well, it says here in verse 24 that Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him. So what we have here is that Enoch walked with God and simply was not, for God took him. This is a beautiful passage that infers that Enoch just was taken up to heaven because he walked so closely with God. May we all seek to be like Enoch. What we have here is the historical generational account from Adam all the way down to Noah, and that's for the purpose of narrative consistency to show where in the story we are. We also have Lamech here. Lamech was the one who said, I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain's revenge is sevenfold, then Lamech's is 77-fold. We find a little bit about the characteristic of God that shows us that God is in fact ironic. We see here that Lamech's years were 777 years old. And if you actually do the timeline right, you find that Lamech quite possibly died in the flood. And Lamech fathered Noah, saying, out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, one shall bring us relief from our work, from the painful toil of our hands. Yes and no. As we know the story of Noah coming up, it's very interesting that Lamech in such a way prophesied that Noah was going to be the one that would bring them relief from their work and the painful toil of their hands. That's all for today on Coffee Shop Talk. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, it's always a good reminder to read this passage before watching so that you have something to discuss down in the comment section below. If you do have some comments, please leave them. I love interaction. Grab some coffee and we'll talk. It says, when Enoch had lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. 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 Methuselah, and Noah was an alright guy.